All right, guys. Well, I'm back today with one of the absolute best first focal plane 1 to 6s on the market that comes in at a great budget price. These generally sell for $199. They're on sale for $159, and I've got a release code specifically for my viewers that's going to save you 25% more. All of the information can be found in the description, but the final price for the optic flip-up lens covers, throw lever, and offset mount package is going to be $120, which is insane when you consider the optic, the value, the build quality, as well as the brand new Morpheus mill reticle that really is a game changer for this optic. The Panzer has been out for a little bit. I reviewed it on the channel, but didn't love the original reticle. It was very hard to use at the 1 power setting. Monstrum dug back in, designed a new reticle, and it is insane. And they also ditched the green color variation and just went with red. So the illumination on the red is pretty awesome. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the specs and features. Now, I've used a lot of this new style reticle with the kind of larger circle that opens up and disappears into a finer reticle on a few other optics. And a lot of times it's really hard to find those under $350. This one is truly competing with some of those ones I've reviewed in that $300 and $350 price range, but coming in after the discounts at $120. Now, I do want to give a huge shout out to Monstrum Tactical for sending this over to the channel. And all of the info or linking where you find on the campsite page or wherever, it will be affiliate linking, meaning if you click on it, it helps out the channel at no extra cost to you, just brings you right to the deals. Now, I also want to give a huge shout out to AAC for sponsoring the ammo to help make this video. They sent over the 55 grain 5.56, and we ran a lot of this through this rifle. I am pushing close to about 4,000 rounds of 5.56 AAC through different setups without a single failure or issue, so it's definitely worth taking a look at. More info on the campsite page, but let's dig right in. Starting with what you get in the box. You do get the offset mount, a couple of batteries, all the tools you need to swap out the batteries and make adjustments, 2 flip-up lens covers, and 2 different throw lever options. You can actually remove this for a post throw lever, but this one's a little bit more profile but does a good job, so I just left that on there, and that's what it comes with. The other thing, when you pull it out of the box, the build quality feels like a $200 or $300 optic. Nothing is screaming like game changer when it comes to build quality, but also nothing feels cheap. It's overall pretty darn good. The mount itself is a fairly nice mount that's included, and the mount is actually made out of 70-75 aluminum, and the housing of the optic is 60-61, so pretty good options right there. Now, these are capped turrets, and the turrets themselves are nothing to write home about. They're pretty good. The clicks are fairly spongy. They are audible, but again, very spongy clicks. But I mean, that's what you expect out of a lot of capped turrets. You really don't start getting too much into the turrets, for me anyways, unless you have exposed tactical turrets where you're making adjustments on the fly. Most of your bullet drop compensation, ranging, and things like that are going to be done inside the reticle on a 1 to 6 first focal plane optic, and that goes back to the optic itself being a first focal plane. When you zoom in and out, the reticle gets larger and smaller, so the bullet drop compensation and ranging is effective at every single zoom level, and everything is based in mils, so you've got 0.2 mil adjustments or MRAD adjustments on the turrets themselves, and then you have everything in mils inside the optic. So it's kind of a departure from a lot of the MOA stuff that they've done in the past. The next thing I want to mention is the zoom level works pretty good, and the tension on the zoom knob itself is nice. It's not overly stiff, and it works out well, and it's got a little indicator right there to let you know what you're at. And since it's a first focal plane, it gives you a ton of versatility there. We will talk about the reticle in a second, but I do want to touch on a couple of things that makes this really stand out over some others that are much more expensive than this optic, and that's the eye box and eye relief. The eye box and eye relief on this first focal plane Panzer is amazing, especially when compared with some of the others on the market. It's just more forgiving, left, right, up, and down, forward and back. And the general eye leaf that these guys are given is about 4 to 5 inches. It's about 11 inches overall length and about 17 ounces in weight. So not the lightest optic in the world, not the smallest optic in the world, but it definitely gets the job done. It's not overly big by any means. The glass clarity is pretty darn good. The light transmission is great. And with that 30mm tube, if you don't like the actual mount itself, you can swap it out with whatever you want. Now, the reticle itself on here, the Morpheus reticle, is absolutely transformative for this optic. There is another reticle selection, the CM3 reticle. I do not recommend purchasing this optic with that reticle. I only recommend purchasing this optic with the new Morpheus reticle. It transforms itself from a circle kind of dot reticle system for up close shooting, as you see in the intro, to a kind of duplex leader line crosshairs with windage adjustments all built in when you zoom in. And man, does this work up close and far away. A lot of times the problems with first focal plane optics, including the CM3 reticle on this one, is that it's really hard to use at the first power setting and the one power setting. And especially with cheaper first focal plane optics, you get a fisheye effect. The reticle's hard to see because it's so fine, and it just almost becomes unusable, especially with the illumination at the one power setting. It's almost pointless to have, but this one is a game changer. It works, and it works well at the one power setting. On top of that, they've adjusted the brightness on the illumination with off positions in between each brightness level, and it gets bright pretty close to darn daytime bright. Now, not as bright as like a red dot's going to be, but pretty darn close and a lot brighter than some of their other reticles in the past. So again, this is checking all the boxes and killing it. Actually, I was looking down in EOTech Voodoo and a couple of others, and this was just as bright as those. Now, the reticles are different, and you can look at the very specifics of that Morpheus reticle. All of the information, again, will be in the description below, and there's going to be some positives and negatives of everything. You know, when you look at that reticle, some may like a chevron in the center, some may like an aiming dot. This one's got crosshairs. You may want the circle a little bit thicker. You may want the circle a little bit thinner. All of that's going to be personal preference, but it's an incredibly usable reticle at every single zoom level, and you just can't say that about the CM3 reticle that they offer. So this is where it's at. I am super glad they released it. So I hope you guys like the video. I hope it gives you a new option, and honestly, the absolute best option you can possibly get right now for under $250 for a first focal plane optic with this style reticle, brightness, illumination, and overall it's been holding up great. No shifts and zeros, no issues whatsoever. You're going to see a lot more rounds through this setup, and if you are interested in this upper, this is one of the upper deals going from KAK right now. You can also use some discounts that I'll put in the description below to save you some money on that. But overall, guys, I'm loving this optic. I think you will too. Again, check that description for the info. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.